Hey everyone, what a wonderful last couple of weeks of track and field. Lots to talk about. It's your show as usual, so whatever you want to talk about, comment, get it in. We'll engage with that. I have a number of things that I want to touch on, and we'll see where we go from there. Let's start with the London Marathon. Last week we got Boston. We didn't get a chance to talk about that, but London today was special. Tigist Assefa smashed the women's only marathon world record. And in the process, she runs 2 hours 15:50 and winning by nearly 3 minutes. That's fabulous performance from her, following up some of our big runs we saw a few years ago. And it's really important. Also smashing that London, the previous world record for women only from Paris Jepchirchir, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that was run in 2023 at 12:16:16. So really, really good, almost lovely performance if you got a chance. I didn't get to watch all of the marathon, but I did see some of that, and we can break it down if that's something that you're also interested in. But creditable, when you think about it, it's not as close as her Berlin world record, which is 2 minutes 11:53, but that's a mixed race world record. But this is a women only, and so obviously the pacing is different. But very, very good run from Assefa there, I thought, and it was a quality field. Sifan Hassan coming in third, 2:18:59, and Jeb Kaskai there from Kenya as well, 2:18:43. So the Ethiopians go 1-3 here. No surprises. I don't think it was really, really good running there for women's marathon. Good splits. I think she, at 5K she was doing like 2:12 pace, and so it was sub 2:12 pace. It was really good, right? So halfway she was up 1 hour 06:40. So some good times there. And on the men's side we saw Sawe taking in that in 2:02:27. So in a way, kind of thinking about maybe the marathon running is on a rise as well there, ahead of Kiplimo there from Uganda, who was making his marathon debut at 2:03:37. And so it's really interesting. Eliud Kipchoge was there as well. I think this is a swan song. He hasn't really said, but he's been biding his time in terms of telling us where he's going to go. I think he mentioned after the race that he might be going to Sydney or someplace like that. So, still running after that disappointment in Paris, doing a 2:05:25 down there in 6. Yeah, Tola was there as well. So interesting guys there in the marathon space. Marathon running gets a lot of eyes on it. This is something that on the channel I've talked about before. When you compare what you get in the marathon road race, the support, the money that's usually attached to that, it's miles apart when you think about pure track and field and the ability to earn income. So a lot of athletes, they are now quickly running towards the road races if they're really capable of doing that, because it's important. Yeah. Are you doing Sir? You're asking, is there a new world record in women? It is a new world record in the sense of women's only. So Assefa, her world record in the marathon is from Berlin a few years ago, right? And that was the 2:11:53 that she did a couple of years back. But that was a mixed race, so they had men and women there. The pacing is, you can also have different pace setters in many of those. But today was just women only in that race, and she did a 2:15:50. So that's a world record there. Yeah. Top boy Price, how you doing? What about Shelly-Ann season open? I'm gonna get to Fraser-Pryce in a second. I wanted to touch on a couple of things that happened today. I should have done Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, but I get you, and thanks everyone for coming on the channel as usual. We'll talk about that. We can talk, and then we'll get into some of the Diamond League action that happened yesterday in Xiamen. There's another Diamond League coming up this weekend in Shanghai. Then we'll also get the second installment of the Grand Slam track. Interesting stuff happening. Penn relays last week. If you watched that, we can talk about that too. There was some stuff at Drake. And, lots of track and field happening. It's the season warming up. Some people are doing much better than others. And it's a long season, so it's hard to really compare at the moment. But, yeah. So, yeah, that was the good stuff on the marathon. We can talk more about that if you want. So Top Boy Price wants to talk about Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce. Hey, it's let me just finish this before we get to Fraser-Pryce. It's like there's more money. It is more money in the marathon. So I think it depends on which marathon it is. You could be pocketing 50, 60 or $100,000 to win the event. And that's separate from like who shows up at these marathons in terms of the star power, the negotiation that goes there. Road race has a lot of money because there's a lot of eyes on it too. It's the most accessible form of the sport. Everybody feels like they can run a marathon, which is a dumb idea, I've often said, for the average person. But the road culture, especially in the United States, that was triggered in the 1970s. There's all these research on this. It really creates this opportunity for people to participate. There's a lot more eyes on the sport. Everyone wants to participate. They're paying their fee. And so the money that comes back to the athletes are really, really good in comparison to, you can run a couple marathons a year and pull in much more money than you would on the track, especially for distance runners as well. It's the comparison is not even close. And so, yeah, I think I'm just talking off the top of my head now. I can't remember the specific numbers, but I think last year at I think it was the New York Marathon or Boston Marathon, they were paying some really good pennies all the way down to some positions that, like I think fifth or sixth place was pulling in more than you would get at winning at the World Championships in the 100 meters or any event. So yeah, there's a lot of money eyes on road racing for sure. All right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Fraser-Pryce. We saw her. When was it? Was it last week or the week before? Yeah, it was last weekend we saw her. We did see her before that, obviously fresh off of our Sports Day clip, which where she torched all of those parents, which was very hilarious to watch, but also I think a cool thing to watch because if you watch the media space on this across the world, everyone was showing that clip. It went viral to see Fraser-Pryce do it again. And, nothing cooler than seeing an Olympian show up to run against average folk, and it's not even close. It would never be close, but everything about it was just like fun, and it kind of creates that emotion. And so we saw her there. Then she decided to touch the real track at that Velocity Fest in Jamaica last week. And at 38 years of age, I mean, she got out of the blocks really well. I thought we wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I've seen a couple of the videos. I watched it live and I watched a few more, right? And she didn't show up for the final, but the angles of the videos weren't the best, if I'm being honest. But the performance looked sharp. I mean, I think our start was clean. The transition looked smooth, and she was still driving in the latter phases. Who was it in the race to? Was it Morrison? And she never looked like she was pushing either. And so it's like a shakeout run for sure. A test of the body, feel the track. We haven't seen her in a while. We haven't seen her since that semifinal no-show in Paris, right? And we haven't quite gotten the story on that, but it or an acceptable story. But running a sub 11, which was obviously she got a tailwind there, so it's not a legal race, but I think it's always good to see her. You want her to end the career the way she wants to end the career. I think she spoke to a bunch of journalists saying that she hasn't decided when she's going to do this, and she's doing things intentionally. She's picking her spots, but she's giving us a glimpse of when we see her. I don't know when we'll see her next, but I don't necessarily think she has to run a lot. I mean, I think Tokyo is on her mind. There's nothing to prove, as we've said on a numerous occasion, because greatness is there, right? And but you want her to go out the way she wants to go out. So it's interesting kind of a setup. I don't like athletes to stick around too long in the sport, especially the great ones, because others can come and beat you. But I think I don't know if she was in good form last year. I think she would have been on the podium because she always finds a way, right? That would have been the hardest thing to do, but I think it's interesting. So I mean, there's nothing to really unpack there. I think that she can run one or two races and you make sure that knee's healthy and back into great shape, and we'll see her. She has to make the team, obviously, from an individual standpoint, because there's no buys. So, and it's not going to be easy. I imagine there's a number of youngsters in Jamaica coming around that want to be on that podium. That not podium, but on the top three. And so it's not going to be an easy thing to make. But if she's healthy, we'll see. But we have to realize that this is really borrowed time, I think, and beyond borrowed time. And in many ways, I don't even know how to unpack some of these things. When you think about it, she's already done things that at so a few years ago, right? She was like 36 and 35 when she became the oldest to win a world championship, and she did it again. You know, that was beating Marlene's world championship in '95 at the oldest, and I don't know. I mean, can she medal? She's already oldest. She's the most decorated. Can she get back to that level? I don't know. The oldest person to medal in 100 meters at the Olympics was what Ati, I think, in 2000. Right? She was like 40 and some change when all is said and done. When they did all of the cleaning up of all of those athletes there from Sydney, but it's legendary. I'll get back to some of this. I see a bunch of people popping through. I want to say hi to everyone. Clip, what's up, man? Big up to you. Sierra saying, I watched Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce race. She was held all the way by Morrison. Yeah, I mean, but I don't know what to think about that. I don't think there's anything to think about. I think she just went out there, did something, and Morrison's a good athlete. He's very, very early. And I think even for an athlete like Fraser-Pryce, she's what? She's old, right? In athletic sense. So she doesn't have to run to make money, which is different from a lot of athletes. She's doing a lot of work in the space of her endorsements look really nice, and so she can pick her events, right? You suspect she might show up for Prefontaine. Usually Nike athletes have to be there, so we'll get to see her in a Diamond League for sure, unless something goes off. But there's going to be some choosing around here, and I'm fine with it, right? I don't think we should worry. It's the first race. We haven't seen her run in a very long time. So yeah. Is she explosive? Is the muscular tone there? Not really, but I don't know what they're doing, right? And they've been tight-lipped on a number of things. So we'll see. Let's see what here. I watched it. Let's see. She didn't look sharp, just like Jackson Shaman. Yeah, yesterday for Sharika is interesting. I don't know what to make of that. I think it's very early. Also, I think I said it when I was doing a quick reaction live yesterday. If Sharika is looking like this in July, then I think I would be concerned. But no, I wouldn't be. Also, knowing the camp and the way in which they tend to prepare athletes, consistently we've seen them do things that is geared towards the championships. She's also in a very fortunate position of having a buy in the 200 meters. She's the reigning world champion, so if she's going to do the double, she has to get away on the 100-meter team. So that's also calculated, and they have to take a lot of time, right? She struggled with injuries last year after running 2-3 seasons of the best 200-meter running you'll ever see in your life, consistently dropping those 12 fours. So what are they going to do? It has to be something that helped first. And I think she would have been rusty regardless. We saw her a couple weeks ago in Miramar at the event there, and she was second to Alfred. Right now, we can't really compare anybody to Julien Alfred. In a sense, I'm really wondering what we'll get if this is early right now in the season, and Alfred is running ridiculous 300s and she's done a 21.8. I can only imagine that she's going to do something stupidly fast later on the season, or maybe they'll take her down and bring her back up. But different types of preparation. All the coach flow athletes seem to be doing well. Not all of them, but many of them are doing some really remarkable things early. Dina Asher-Smith's running some big 400-meter times, and I think Dina is going to do something really special this year. But back to your comment, yeah, she didn't look sharp, but I thought she was okay. I mean, I think she ran with how they wanted her to run, and Battle has been doing really good stuff this year. She has a 10. She went sub 11 recently. What was it? 10.98 with it's a fairly good win, maybe 1.4, 1.6. I have to check again. And then she's looking good here. So I don't think we can really dissect much here. Oh, all in the game is in the house. It's like wait till the end of June to see if there's an improvement, but it's not looking like 21, 23 Sharika at the moment. I agree with that. I would say I'd be concerned if you get to June, July, end of June, July, and you're not going sub 22s comfortably, then it might be a challenge. Now, the question always in the women's 200 meters is what is required to win? I think a 21.6 gets you on the podium for sure. 21.7s could get you there as well. Anything below that, and you definitely almost guaranteed victory. What we know for sure is Gabby will come, and she's already running really good times over 400 meters. We saw that at the Grand Slam. She'll be quick. I think it's a new Alfred, new coach flow. He's going for double in terms of what they want to do with her production. She's younger. Her body can take it. She hasn't had any setbacks yet. So I think they're gearing up for her to be in the 21.6 level as well, which will only improve the 100 meters, I imagine, too. It could be scary times. St. Lucia might be doing something really outstanding. Oh, and also St. Lucia has I saw a kid at the Carifta Games there also breaking an Alfred record, or Alfred Jr. record as well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I agree. I think it doesn't look that way. The 300, when she ran that 300, I think she could have been better, but it was early. We have to wait. If she's not, yeah, I don't know. I'll hold off on that. A serious sense, some of the big guns disappointed in Shaman, even though yeah, I don't know. I feel we have to think about how long the season is and realize that the World Championships is in September, and it's going to be the same in a few years' time in Beijing as well. So we'll have a repeat of that. We must remember, we only had to go back to Doha a few years ago when we saw those late World Championships in 2019. It's not something that's often on the calendar, but athletes ran well. We had a lot of great times there, and distances. So I don't think we should be concerned. And then who knows where it goes after Beijing? I just saw earlier yesterday or today that London placed a bid for the 2029 World Championships. So yeah, that's another side story. I'm trying to go back to see. I can pull up some of those results again because off the top of my head, I thought we got some good performances. Fate, obviously Varham doing a world best. Grant, I think Grant is hurt. I think I saw a clip just yesterday evening talking about him having an injury there. I hope it's not bad because he was in good shape, it looks like, and then he stumbled. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe if you can point out who was disappointing. Off the top of my head, I'm not remembering, to be honest with you right now. Yeah. Let's see where we are. All in the game is saying training partners Grant Holloway and great start didn't look good in the sprint hurdles. Yeah, Stark was okay for me until she clipped what hurdle 10, right? I thought that she was on a 10-4 run, a 12-4 run in my mind, and then she maybe a little bit rusty in some of the other things. I have to go look at the race again. I don't know if I have it nearby, but uh, she I thought she was on course for 12 for sub 12.5. It looks like to me because what was it in the end? Daniel Williams, who was interesting. I saw Lennox Graham saying he was coaching on two continents at the same time. So it was interesting there. But try to get that in a second. I want to see the results just to remind me again. Yeah, 12:53 in the end. Daniel Williams did. I thought that Stark was on course for sub 12.5, and until she had that hit there, so I don't know. Charlton had a mishap. Uh, 12.7 right now for Toby. I don't know what to make of that. I feel like if you're running in the 12.7s, 12, it's fine. I mean, Masai Russell ran at one yesterday in okay time too. The thing about the explosive races, the things that pound your body, the distance guys are okay. Usually there's a lot of reserve there. They're not relying on it's a different energy system. Not that they can't be burned out too or anything like that, but I think there's only so much explosiveness in you and and pounding that you can do. And if you want to be in the kind of best shape all the way to the World Championships, that's interesting. I'm also intrigued that Danielle Williams is running a lot. I know the hurdlers run a lot too, but she has a buy into the World Championships. Maybe they'll figure it out, right? Or maybe they're just capitalizing on what they can capitalize onto. All right. Let's see where we are. I missed. There's so many comments. Not so many, but I'll try to get them. I see you're saying Ati nearly reached the finals at age 44 at Athens 2004. She finished fifth in her semifinal, being edged out by Latasha Collin. Yeah, Merlin was something else too. So I suspect there's a little bit of Merlin in Fraser-Pryce. Not stylistic or anything. I meant the mental space, right? I, I feel like Ati would want to run today if she could, right? Because it some people can give it up, others can, right? I suspect Fraser-Pryce can give it up. I think she wants to give it up on her terms. And I used to quote myself some years ago. I think I said it last year, the year before. Can you beat her? It's possible. It has been done. Can you take her off the podium? Up until last year, the answer to that is no. I mean, well, she wasn't around for the semifinals for us to even know that. There's a steeliness, a fighting spirit, a determination, a consistency for greatness in Fraser-Pryce that I don't think she shows up if she doesn't feel like she can find a way on the podium. I thought 16 when she found her way on the podium in 2016, outrageous with the toe. I think they would have been disappointed in 21. I don't think you could have beaten. I don't think Elaine could have been beaten that night, but I think the way they set up that season, she should have been running that 10-6 in the final in Tokyo. That would have made that race even more special. The year after they solved all those issues in Eugene, and she has some injuries, and she finds her way back on the podium in Budapest, much to the chagrin of Marie-Josée Talou. So if she gets on a team and she goes, I think she tries to she gets on a podium. That's the way she thinks about it. And sometimes sports is mental, right? Especially you have to have everything else, but the mental part is tough. And if she gets one of those legendary starts, and the thing that was impacting the start was the knee, if they solve that, if they can work with that, then she might be halfway down the track and maybe only a few can get her. And so we'll see. Well, I can't. We can't make predictions now. I wouldn't. I wouldn't bet against her. But yeah, seriously, Shelly doesn't look as sharp as I would want her to look. But it's early, so I'm not worried. Yeah, it's extremely early. I don't know what the background training is and when they started. We know there was a kind of shifting thing that happened again last year, but it's it's gonna be interesting times for this. We're at this interesting stage where the Jamaican big three, there's space there, right? Fraser-Pryce for sure is going at some point, uh, whether willingly or unwillingly, and the youngest of all of them is Jackson, so she might be around for. I could see her in LA. I can't see her doubling in LA, but that's a different story. And Elaine, I don't know, right? We'll get to see if we'll get a renewed Elaine right now, right? We know she's in interesting hands at the moment. I'll just leave it at that. Uh, all in the game, 21-8 has never failed to medal in a World Championships or Olympic tour. And that is true. If Sharika is struggling to run that by July, I don't fancy her chances of a third World Championship 200 versus Gabby Julien in Tokyo. No, it's true. I think you cannot go to the World Championships if you're not in a 21-6 shape and expect to be on the podium. And the beauty about this is that there's a number of people that could be doing some interesting things this year, right? Mackenzie Long. Is Abby Steiner coming back this year? I don't know. I haven't seen. Last year she tried a thing or two, and we might get a few athletes. And we're talking all of this and forgetting the big X factor here, and I think is Asher-Smith. I think Asher-Smith runs 12-7 this year again. I'm just saying that. Not 12-7, 21-7. I feel like it's there. I think they're going to do it. I think it's a big shot for her. A full, proper season with Flo. This is why I was saying the same thing for even Brianna Williams. We haven't seen her, and I don't know what's happening there, but I think a proper year on the John Smith, you expect something else. You expect better. I mean, the training, the camp there, at least to go back to the Texas camp, I think. Look at the quality there, man. Yeah, it must be good. 21-8 is guaranteed a medal. 21-6 is guaranteed. Yeah, anybody. I agree with that clip. Anybody who can do the 21-6. I mean, we're talking about those are rarefied time. We're just throwing around 21-6 here, like it's like normal. That's a handful of people can get to that and consistently do it. So we'll see. All in the game agrees with you. Gabby has never run sub 21-8 outside of Eugene and always medals. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Uh, I if she could do it this time, I would imagine. I don't know though. We'll see. I believe that. Yeah, I should just wait and see till things happen. But I like what I'm seeing over 400 for her, and it could be a different year. Yeah. Seriously, and last year Amundsen finished fifth in the first Diamond League in China, came back in second Diamond League to win, and later was disqualified for a false start. There will be a new winner in Shanghai. Yeah, I. No one calls these things. I don't think when it comes to the world champ women's 100-meter hurdles. It's too. It's hard to make a call on these things. You can't really on any given night, someone can win it. The field is too competitive. I'm trying to see what the lineup is for Shanghai. It's probably pretty much similar to the people that are there. Normally, when you go to China for the first Diamond League, you stick around for the next one. Not everybody does this, but the lineup looks pretty similar. There's Nia Ali is there, Toby's there, Devon Charlton. Uh, the South African athlete is there too. Marshall, Sierkowska is there, Starks, Williams, and Wu. It looks pretty similar to the lineup that we saw in. Yeah, it's almost the same. It's not the same, but it's pretty. Some of the principles are there. Yeah, I didn't see Sharika line up for the 200 though in Shanghai, so I guess she's not gonna go to that event. I'm not quite sure. I was just browsing this just before I got onto the live. I see Rashidat Adalike is running the 200 meters too, so that should be interesting. Come Saturday. Let's see. Favor Field is looking good. Yeah, she ran a couple good races there over 1 and 2. Not bad, yeah. I think you could get something good from Favor as well. All in the game agrees. Favor is looking good. I think she can make both Tokyo 1-2 finals, especially as it's now 9-lane finals. Yeah, that's interesting. Possibly. I think she has the ability. We know this. The talent is there. We'll wait and see. Yeah, 9-lane. Yeah, this year we're gonna see 9 lanes for sure. Vijay saying Brianna Open in Miramar. Yeah, I did see that the 1107 would win. Yeah, I think that's not bad. I mean, we just got, but I don't remember. The win was like 4, right? I can't remember off the top of my head now, but or 3 point something. Uh, I'm expecting a lot from her in the sense only because the preparation is there. John Smith, I haven't checked his roster recently. I don't think he has a lot of athletes right now. So it could be a project for him, right? Could be a project for him. He hasn't had a world champion since, is it Jeddah? But he has top class athletes, but it's been a while. As far as a Battle, Mackenzie, Long, Steiner have not been able to replicate their impressive times outside the US. Why is that? Well, Steiner, we know what happened to her. She had that foot injury. I mean, Battle looks okay right now. Mackenzie, it's too early. I mean, she just transitioned from university, so she just signed some deal too. So early season, I think we'll wait to see. Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't look at the Mount Sac times for that. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I had a lot of other things to talk about, but now that you say a few things on that, I saw. Speaking of that, the Fred Curley stuff is interesting. When I saw Fred last week, I was like, Fred could still run a 400 meters. I like that. Like there's a 43 guys still in those legs, which is interesting. I know why he doesn't want to run the 400. I think he's been on record to say there's no money in it, but it would be good if he would still run the 400 meters. Just my own personal thing. Yeah. All right. Before I get into some other stuff, and feel free to put anything you want to talk about. Anybody watch that World Shot Put series in at the Drake relays last weekend? I spent time watching it. Very interesting. So if you don't know about it, the World Shot Put series, Ryan Krause he spearheaded this thing, and they set it up at the Drake Games indoors. Really interesting setup in the sense that they weren't measuring distances, right? They tried to create the same feel you will have in a field events like high jump or pole vault. So there is a standard line and a predetermined mark, and athletes have to get it. There's 2 tries, There was also a little bit of mimicking the NFL with bringing out the chains, and you could challenge, and if you missed the throws, then you wouldn't advance. So it kind of sped things along. It seems like a raucous crowd was there. People were excited about it. I don't know. It was really interesting. Eventually, Roger Steen won. He beat Trip. What's Trip's name again? Pippery, I think. And yeah, not bad. I mean, it's an interesting kind of event to bring the field events to create some form of excitement for the regular crowd. So when we talk about revolutionizing the sport, I don't know if this is it, but it was certainly an interesting event to watch. I like it. It was not my cup of tea fully, but I'm not the guy you need to persuade to watch track and field. So I think maybe for a non-follower of the sport, just to know there's a marker and athletes have to go over that marker, maybe that could be a captivating thing. If you're a true veteran of the sport, you may not necessarily like it, but it seems fine. I mean, I've seen things over the last years that I find could be innovative, like pole vaulting in a mall. I'm fine with it. Doing stuff where you have the track and field portion of the Diamond League in the middle of Zurich on a made up track. I can get behind some of those things. So I like what I saw there. I hope it works out for Ryan Krauser and this event. The field events need attention. I think it's good. And maybe just having markers and distances where you have to go over will intrigue a non a follower that doesn't a casual follower, right? Because sometimes, as we've talked about, explaining the marks or times and distances in the sport of track and field to people is not always the easiest thing to do. So telling someone that they just threw 22 meters or 22 meters versus 23, it's a far distance here, but sometimes it's not so easy for the uninitiated to grasp. And so maybe some orange lines or markers, and you get over that, it's fine. I think it's okay. Let me get back to some more of your comments, and thank everybody for joining in and for putting everything there and for liking. Clip said, I got Akini Sambini winning the Shanghai Diamond League. He's in the best shape right now because national champion. Yeah, he was. South African guys or Australian guys, those are the guys who are always in fresh shape at this time of the year. They pick their teams early. So Simbini, I'd like for him to kind of shut it down and then come back later. But he's always missing podiums, and that's not easy. And he's getting older, so we'll see. All in the game. Any other country would still have Fred run the 4x4 at a global championship event as a short sprinter. Yeah, can't disagree with that off the top of my head right now. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I see Noah Lyles running 400 meters too because he wants to be on a relay team, but he shouldn't be anywhere close to that relay team before Fred Curley. I don't think the US guys are short on 400 guys anyway, so yeah. Clips. I was thinking of tuning in the Drake relays, but I didn't see any names that I wanted to see. I didn't get a chance to fully watch Drake this time, to be honest with you, because I was watching all of the Penn relay stuff, so I only kind of look at that stuff. All in the game. Simbini didn't compete as no. You're right. He did that last week or a couple weeks ago. All in the game. But he's in great form at the moment. Would love to see him get an individual outdoor medal in Tokyo. Would expand Krauser's league to include other field events. I think that could work. I think if we can get a discus thing to going, like, then you got to have a big space. The beauty about the shot put is that it can be done indoors. It could be done in interesting facilities as well. But I like what I'm seeing there. I think it's an interesting thing. Anything to expand the sport is needed. See, you're saying, where's this USA athlete that was doing well over the 400 meters, 400 hurdles? I think her name is Britton Wilson. She also looks formidable challenger to Sydney, but just disappeared. What went wrong? Well, first, I don't think anybody is challenging Sydney, but I think she got hurt. I can't remember how. Yeah, I'll have to look. Let me see. All in the game might know. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think she has some injuries, some niggling injuries. I don't know if it's something with her. Maybe it's. I can't remember. Was it a metatarsal or something? I don't remember. I have to go look. I'll look it up, or I'll ask my producer to look it up. All in the game is saying going back and forth between attempts in shot put, high jump, pole vault, and long jump, for example, is a fast moving competition would be great. No, I think that's spot on. I think that could work. Look, I hate to bring this up because I've been hating on the Grand Slam track recently, but there was something special about watching the Diamond League again, and there was this back and forth. And also shout out to Flow Track for providing all the feeds, so I could have watched the main feed. You could get the different field events feel at the same time. I watched so I could move around. So there was an opportunity to see stuff, and I think that's a part of a track and field experience when you go to a live event. Is that something just happened on a track? You could turn this way, turn that way. Sometimes it's hard to see depending on your vantage point in a stadium, but there are a number of things going on. So it's fit for TV. It's quick turnover and not a lot of downtime. So yeah, definitely, I think that's an interesting setup like that could work. Pole vault for sure. You're right. High jump, long jump. Yeah, you could do long and triple jump can go in a smaller space as well if they can lay it down. That could be an interesting field event thing. Yeah. Well, okay, I missed it. I'm not quite sure what that is. Oh, all in the game actually answered the question here. Britton Wilson suffered stress fractures in both legs. Should be back this year. Hopefully, Shawnee comes back from injury too. Yeah, hopefully we'll see Shawnee. I don't know what we'll get. I saw that Stephen Gardner is back again. In not only we know he's been back, but he's taking up a position in Grand Slam. He just replaced Quincy Hall. Is that correct? If I remember. So yeah, yeah. VJ said I didn't really pay much attention to Drake relays. I'm not a big fan of shot put, but it's really good initiative. We got to be big fans of all. I'm not calling you out, VJ, but I think all of the shot put is cool. It's in a good space. I think I'm trying to think like what event in track and field I dislike the most. I don't really know. Yeah, I feel like there's merits for everything. I understand the selling of things is different and what we find exciting, but we're still in a really great phase of high quality shot put on both sides. The women are showing up in some interesting ways. I don't think you win. Yeah, you can't. You're not getting on a podium for women if you're not pushing 20 meters and change and more. It's not happening. And there's a bunch of guys that are now at 22 shape in men. You know, people pushing up towards the 23s. It's a really great space. Really great space. So check it out. uh, Asira saying the nonsensical final three in the long jump must be cancelled. I hear you. I think it's about, I guess, TV stuff. Uh, yeah, it won't happen in World Championships, but TV stuff. Shot all in the game. Shot put a good place about exactly. Yeah, I just said discus as well. Yeah, we saw some good stuff, and there was a really good javelin thing too. Yesterday too, right? Yeah, the discus is in a healthy space. You get a lot of great stuff in Ramona, but outside of that, you're still getting high 60s, 70s. Women are capable. I think men's discus is really, really competitive space. So, and the women are also very competitive. And Perez should be at the World Championships this year. Hope, and so it's yeah. It was Perez trying to change her citizenship. If I'm trying to remember, now I'm getting old. I can't remember everything. Yeah. Clip says, out of all the field events, the pole vault is the least exciting to me. Interesting. Mm. Even with Mondo right now, or you mean as a competitive space? There's a bunch of guys that I think the bar is being raised there as well. You know, Coriolis, there is Obina still jumping well. There's a bunch of guys. I think it's not bad. I think it's not a bad space, but I get what you're saying. Uh, high jump is in a good space for women too. You got, we got a world record recently. Yaroslava, you got Olisegas, you got Patterson, Topic. Yeah, I'm just off the top of my head. Men's high jump still in a decent space, maybe not the levels that you want. I'd love to see a bunch of guys going back in the 20, 2 meters 40 range consistently, maybe 2, 3 guys at the same time. But sometimes these things are cyclic. I think long jump is an interesting space. I think the competition in long jump is there. The distances aren't the way we would have seen in previous eras. But again, that's me being greedy, and we probably had all-time greats in like Carlos is just the greatest over this. So, but youngsters there, Ferlani. I think the Jamaican guys are doing interesting stuff. Triple jump is in a very healthy space. So I can't find any real weaknesses in the field events right now. Just I mean I would back of the hand calculation on a live right now. But I think the space if we're not getting to top class distances, then but there's a competitive element as well. So I'm fine with where we are. But feel free to tell me what's going on. Let me see. All in the game. Same with hammer and actually and javelin slowly get. Yeah, that is true. Javelin is there too. Uh, VJ. Yeah, I wouldn't say I dislike. I just LOL. Just not particularly interested. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Yeah, I know you're a big fan of the sport. Clip said pole vault and javelin are least exciting to me, but Mondo has been doing a great job. He just needs some competition. I don't think we'll get a competition from Mondo. Here's how I think about men's pole vault. What we need in men's pole vault is to have 5 guys on a given night in a big competition with the capability of going over 6 meters. So we need a 6 meter club to be in full swing, not getting close to it, but just dropping 6 meters a little bit above it. I think the ceiling for most of these guys are there. This Greek kid could go some places. He's never going to get close to Mondo, but if you can get more guys in a competitive space in the 6 meter above there, it also changes the calculus for Mondo himself. He can't sit and wait that long either. So he has to get in early action, and maybe he might get flustered a little bit, but he's the best we've ever seen. So we can't. I don't think he'll be. Yesterday he didn't go over 6 meters in China, but he broke the world record indoors. So what are we talking about, right? It's probably outside of him. We just need to. The rest of the guys need to step up in terms of where they are in big distance, in big jumps, in terms of clearance. So if that happens, I'm fine. VJ, I'm eager to see Sha'Carri open our season. I don't know when that's happening. I haven't seen any word on that. Early for her. She has a bye in the 100 meters. So she's also in a very fortunate position of can pick and choose her races very well. Good money from endorsements and more money than she'll ever make in the sport from endorsements. So I don't know if you've ever seen, I think Forbes had this graph or some other, or The Economist some years ago. I can't remember where I saw it, where athletes make the money off the of outside of the sport, right? So I think like Roger Federer is probably the greatest at this, making a lot more money than he ever made on the tennis court. And I think for track and field, it's probably similar for the big superstars, yeah, Usain Bolts, whoever, right? Fraser Price. I think they make a lot more money from non track and field related stuff, and we know the challenges for track and field in terms of the the revenue structure. I think she's in a very advantageous position to time the season, and you can wait. You can just wait to make sure that you're really fresh by the time you get to September. So I don't know when. I haven't checked to see if they've made a news on this, but if someone in the comments know, feel free to tell me. Seriously, any news on the Venezuelan jumper? I think you're talking about Yulimar Rojas. I saw a clip of her bouncing, like mimicking the explosive stuff that you would do, like a pre-preparation drill for the triple jump. So I think we're gonna see her this year. She's healthy for sure. I know that we've seen her starting to do some jumps. Hopefully she'll be back. When you rupture an Achilles tendon, it's not an easy thing to come back from and to get back to those levels, even with the best of best sports science and recovery and all that kind of measures that she certainly was doing. But so will she start consistently jumping 15 meters right out of the gate? I wouldn't bet my money on it, but I just want to see a healthy Ulimar, and we'll see what we get from her. I suspect we'll see her at some point soon. All in the game in sense. Couldn't disagree more with Clip, especially to love the javelin, arguably the most diverse in terms of number of countries who are competitive. It is a really big space. You're right on that. I love the javelin. I mean, look, it meant on a given night you're getting all sort of people. It's the javelin is like a life of its own, right? We can think about the geopolitical angle of the javelin, the Pakistan versus India, the bunch guys from the Caribbean doing this, the Finnish guys, the Scandinavian guys, everywhere. It's an interesting kind of a space, right? If someone could write the stories around javelin from a human interest angle, it may be able to capture the kind of hearts and minds of the non-track and field or the casual track and field supporter. But that's for another thing. And Paul is saying, Nevada Paul, Randolph Rostrier suspension is up in June. Do you think he will make the Tokyo team? Zero idea on that. I suspect he's training hard, but June, possibly if he's in good shape and he can get some races, we'll see. But I don't know what kind of shape he's in. The thing about a 400, it's an easier combat than say 100 meters, where you need a few good races to kind of relearn and get yourself back on in the thick of things. But I don't know. I'm just remember. Oh, time flies. I remember when he got that ban. I'm still very suspicious of that stuff. Like, I mean, like, how is he getting whereabouts violation, and blaming like you don't know, and your father was like an elite athlete as well. It's just, I just don't get it. But we'll see. All in the game, men's long jump in terms of distance jump is arguably the weakest field events at the moment. Yeah, I agree on that. I understand Carl when he's saying, well, we talked about this on a couple lives. I don't understand him when he's saying World Athletics is trying to erase his records with the takeoff zone. But the distances that they're jumping are just not the levels where we expect them to be. I don't know why that's the case. I just feel like on a night you should not be coming off a medal podium. You shouldn't be making any medal podium if you're not going north of 8 meters 50 on a good night. But there's a bunch of interesting guys jumping at the moment. The competition is there, I think. Distance is just not there. So we'll see what we get there. Clip is saying triple jump and long jump have been eaten up for over the years. I went from not caring about them at all to actually looking forward to them. Women's for sure is exciting. I like to see. Women's long jump is also in good space. It's a bunch of women that can do 7 meter club. The question is like, should we be pushing the 720s and 30s? Should we be getting women that could be pushing up to these world records? I don't know the answer to that. That's debatable in terms of where that is. Yeah. I think that's a response to All in the Game. All in the Game is saying, for context, Colorado and Mondo jumping 605 in the same competition during indoors is the first time it's happened in history, so people need to bear that in mind in terms of how difficult it is. It's a good point you're making. Yeah, now that I'm reflecting on this, yeah, because the long jump big guys are always in stages. There's a period of this Buka just kind of transformed the sport from a non-6 meter club to way up there. Then you got a little bit of the French guy Lavigny, then now Mondo. 6 meters are hard. Is hard to get to, but there are guys with what we know. What is there? How many guys now are in the 6 meter club? Around 3, 4. Yeah, yeah. But getting to that point, you're right. At that stage, is not so easy. But it would be great. I think that's the future. I think for the sport and for others who might be inspired by Mondo, which we won't know about until another how many years. If we can get athletes to be in the 6 meter club, then maybe the competition is much more exciting at that level. But it's not like it's not exciting. I just think Monlo is just an outlier too. And even if you got a bunch of other people going over 6 meters, it's just he's a 620 guy, right? He's trying to go to 630, which is amazing or outrageous. So we can't really watch him, I don't think. Yeah. Let's see where we are here. Randall Farms Grace and banned for 3 years, respectively, from the same school and being coached by the same person. What is going on? And I don't know. I know, but I don't want to get into trouble, so I can't say things I don't on the live. Yeah, Dwayne Ross doesn't have the great history when it comes to doping as an athlete and coach. Hope Jasiah Sears doesn't get caught up in this nonsense. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. That's why sometimes you have to keep your company interesting, right? You have to be circumspect. It's still to this day, the thing that I want clarity on and we'll never get is on the Oregon project. When all of those guys jumped ship, everybody after Salazar, we knew he was going to go down. And the question is, how many that didn't get caught up in that thing? Was it just isolated just to those few people? And I find that very hard to believe, but there's no evidence that we can come out and say without getting into any kind of trouble. But a lot of people went back to the flew across the channel, and other people went different places, and it's very hard to think about that, right? That there wasn't that you didn't know, right? It's the same thing with even the whole. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into the Balco stuff, but anyway, Abbas is saying nearly every country in the world is producing sprinters. What is the revolution behind this? I don't. It's an interesting word, revolution. One, everyone should, sprinting is a normal thing, right? You should be capable of doing it. So then the question comes, what is the infrastructure around to push people into that, right? The training. Look at what India is doing. Aside and don't laugh at the guys running from the doping control, but they have started over a number of years to invest more in track and field. They've been getting coaches from around the world. They're changing different stuff. And with the right incentives, they should be producing a lot more athletes. And if they're in the whether they can do world class things, those are a different story. I think what we're getting at here is one is something that everyone should be doing is easily accessible. Every kid runs at some point. You just have to have systems and structures in place, and I think a lot more people are doing this. The place where the biggest output of sprinters should be coming from is on the continent, I think, of Africa. If they can figure that out, I talk like Nigeria should figure out their whole structure of running. Yeah, I know they're changing their school structures and so on. You have to have the infrastructure. I think that will work, but and there are places that have better structure but less interest, right? If you look at the Australian structure and their sports science projects and the kind of resources at some level of the grassroots, New Zealand as well, what they lack sometimes is the interest from the kids to go into sport. I think even in Jamaica, sometimes on the women's side, this has been a talk. I don't know if there's real studies on this or so, where if you look at the configuration of the high school athlete championships, the class one for women are often there's not a lot of them there, and there's been talks about like as they get older, transition. For them to still stay in the sport is not always the easiest thing to do. There's like outside pressure outside of this like studying and so on. There's other pressures that may think that they don't want to do that stuff. So I don't know. I think this is a structural thing. I in fairness as well, World Athletics has done some interesting work along with the Olympic project to go around different parts of the world and try to expand the sport. And so sometimes when we do see these athletes running, that they're giving them a chance to taste the Olympics or the world championships, and we're like, well, they're not really up to speed. It looks amateurish. That's a critique. It's also because they're trying to expand the sport in some interesting ways. So I think those things shouldn't be gone unnoticed, right? And we see what happens there. VJ Christel is making his return at Rachel's Grand Prix. Hopefully, all goes well for him. Yeah, I did see that. I saw the whole Rachel's Grand Prix thing. Yeah, that's another nonsense situation there, and it's interesting. Yeah. Is the enhanced game something that you would tune into or take a look at? I don't know. I just because the enhanced game stuff, the idea that you could take stuff or do, people are still gonna cheat. I don't know. I have to think more about that clip. But no, off the top of my head, I know. You see, part of sport is the integrity of the sport in all sport. So I am very much against things that you try to break away from because there are lessons of, and I know it might sound paternalistic or whatever word is the right appropriate word, but there's something that sports done in a clean, transparent way. And we know there are variations on resources and preparation, but if you follow the rules, the kind of long life lessons, and I worry about the integrity of sport when you go down that angle. It's the same like when we had this discussion many years ago about, well, should marijuana be considered a, a banned substance, right? And at one point, there was arguments about whether it could be used as a masking agent. I think anti-doping says that's not really a thing, and there's amount you can do outside of competition versus into competition. But also, I think it goes to the global thing about a bigger question about like what does it mean to participate in sport and the things that you might put in your body. And so the integrity of the sport matters to me. So I don't know if I would take a look at that. I'll probably look at it, but I don't know. Seriously, Eric Lear supplied PEDs to athletes from Nigeria, Switzerland, and Britain. Why is the AIU refused to name the British athlete involved? Blessing Akabari and Alex Wilson are facing lengthy bans. I don't know the answer to this. It's an interesting thing. The Lira stuff, he got off in the end. I think he worked out a plea deal. There's something that came up the other day that I'm trying to get some answers to. I don't have the answer yet. So the thing that we know about the environment to get drugs into the sport has changed, right? Okay. I'm rambling. I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. So the Gerald Fury thing that happened recently, he got banned, right? The question is, will he be charged at some point? Because he's a US based guy. Potentially, he could be charged under Rodchenkov Act, because if you supply doping or facilitate doping, you can be charged. So we're in an environment now where all coaches, all physios, anybody connected to athletes can be charged, not the athletes themselves, if they are in the United States, and it extends beyond the United States in the sense that because it can go for international competition. So, for example, if you're a doper somewhere else and you come in but you were going to be competitive because you're going to go to the Olympics or the World Championships, there's some ways that this legislation can work. The challenge that I don't know about the Eric Lira in terms of the British athlete involved is like what it means for their own process, or are they doing any kind of interesting long-term investigation? I have no idea on that, because there's a couple of things, and I'm glad you mentioned the Lira thing, and I haven't looked at it for a few years, but I did do something on it many years ago. Is the idea that there is some co-conspirators that are still unnamed. At least to me, I don't know if they were ever revealed, and we'll have to check on it. But I don't think they were ever revealed. So who are those co-conspirators? Because they named them out in the in the thing from the federal from the attorney general there from that district. So it could also be ongoing investigations, ongoing stuff that's happening too, and people, I don't know, maybe we'll find out that there's a big syndicate of doping going on and everything comes together, because the way the AIU now works with the FBI or other agencies are much more intertwined than previously. So we'll have to see. Yeah. Cliff Sam, I'm waiting for the reactions from fans when they realize that the times might possibly be similar to what they've seen before. Okay. I mean for the enhanced games. Yeah. All in the game saying, having a slight hot take on relays at Olympics. Would it be interesting if they were all straight finals, adding more stakes to world relays by using them to qualify 9 teams to be in each final? It's very interesting. One, I would say I would be initially against this idea only because I would believe it might give unfair advantage to countries with bigger talent pools. I do agree that to incentivize athletes to be at the World Relays, maybe something needs to be changed or shifted in some interesting ways. But also, we have to think about the calendar. So when is the World Relays? In 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Still very early. And so it has to fall in line with the system some more. But that's an interesting kind of a thing. While I'm thinking off the top of my head, it could also mean that it's possible that teams that have smaller talent pools could be in good positions too, especially if they are seriously always working on a relay camp or being in a camp. Yeah, I don't know. That's a very interesting one all in the game. Perhaps like World Relays could be closer to the championships, but I know that's a really scheduling nightmare. So I don't know. I've seen a couple of the teams' names for world relays. I think some of the Americans didn't go. Some of the big names. Jamaica seemed like they're sending a fairly decent team. I don't know how what will pan out there. I'm sure they're in a position. They're hoping to avoid the 4x4 debacle from last time. But it's interesting. All in the game is saying the thinking is that it benefits countries with small talent, but who can afford to run their strongest team in the semi to be. Oh yeah, that could. Yeah, but then they'd have to get to it from May. I don't know. Very interesting. Hmm. I have to sleep on this one. I have to think some more about it. But I don't think it's a bad idea to go to a straight final. I suspect it would make teams smaller too. You know, yeah, the relay pools could be. I mean, the whole relay pool thing was even smaller at the Paris Olympics, right? Than it will be at the World Championship in terms of number of athletes, just because of space and issues in Paris. But I, I don't know. I don't know. What I was more thinking about, just to think about the whole thing, was would we be better served, since we're on the hot takes section of the live, would we be better served to have a 200 meters or a 250-meter hurdles, where you could then get the sprint hurdlers kind of popping up with the 400-meter hurdles? Because I still don't get this 300-meter hurdle thing. What's the point? I think I'm buying a little bit with that 1,000 meters. Is it a 1,000-meter steeplechase they're implementing? I can get behind that. The 300, I can't. The more that I think about it, and if we had like a 250, maybe the 110 guys would be interested. But I don't know though. This might be pushing it. It could be totally two different sports here. I'm with you all in the game. I remember when you talk about we spoke about some things recently, and the mixed relays came in, the mixed 4x1. You were saying that, and VJ just put a comment on this, so I'll talk about it too, that maybe a sprint medley, a medley relay would be a better idea. And I'm even more convinced that you're right on the medley thing, because I was trying to think about the mixed 4x1, and I think it's going to be drop buttons or or exchange violations. I don't know. I just feel like this running into them is going to be a problem. But we'll see when the mixed 4x1 happens. I don't know if that's what we need in a sport. I think a sprint medley would work. I mean, or a medley relay rather. You look at even what's happening when you watch a pen relays or so, and you see some of these things. It could be cool, you know. It could be a medley, even that Jamaica style medley, which doesn't get run a lot on the scene, but something that you could put in some 800-meter guys and 1,500-meter guys. That might be a much more exciting event from a relay standpoint. Maybe 800 max. No one wants to see more than that. Probably the TV guys would be saying that, but it could work. Uh, let's see. I don't know if I have any specific expectations for World Relays. Usually at the World Relays, I'm just saying I'm looking to see how healthy athletes are. It depends on the shape they come into, and I think the talent pool is big for the US, so that I don't think they'll worry about it. Jamaica's named a decent team. I think I saw the French team, a couple. I think some of those other teams are bringing some decent athletes, so it should be good. I don't know how many people. I'm wondering if, like, when it goes back to Bahamas, if more people want to go there, at least from this side, versus going back to China. I don't know if they think about the travel, but that's only on this side of the hemisphere, so I don't know. All in the game is saying, as long as the 300 hurdles doesn't find its way into the global championships, I'm fine with it as an event on the circuit. Yeah, I agree. I think that has no place at the World Championships or Olympics. It makes zero sense to me if it's just 100 meter less. I think if the idea is to get it where you can double up, then maybe you need something else. Yeah. All in the game, 100% convinced that a medley relay is needed, is what's needed from a TV's perspective. Like I said, a sprint medley 2-2-4-8 makes the most sense. Yeah, I think that would be good. It wouldn't be that long either, because look at that. You're thinking about if it's on the men's side, 20, then on a fly two, you're going to get like a 19 something, could be even faster depending on who doing it. 400 is going to give you 43s, 42s, and you get like a 145 ish depending on who's running this or better. It would be over in no time on both men and women, and it wouldn't be a bad thing. It would be very exciting as well, and it would give some of these other athletes opportunities to get shots at medals. You know, you're just giving sprinters more opportunities to get medals in a mixed relay. So I'm not here for it. All right. I want to do one more thing before I leave. I had a lot more stuff, but when the comments come in, I always gravitate to that. And then I'll try to come back and do another live, so we'll have something. I don't know how many of you saw the All in the Game is saying it takes about as long as a normal 4x4 giving 800 meters runners relay medal opportunities. Yeah, that's true. I agree with this. I want to say this. I was on two minds about talking about this, but I want to talk about it. So I saw something on social media, and I subsequently saw a couple clips. I saw Assefa Powell, and he had something where he was talking about athletic support, and more importantly, he was talking about whether or not his children, if they were to become athletes or want to be athletes, whether he would allow them to run for Jamaica, or he wouldn't until things change. Couple of things first. He has a right to say whatever he wants to say, and people have a right to criticize him, I guess. There's a lot of social media buzz on this. I think people writing in newspapers. There's all these different angles of people commenting on this. It transcends, I suspect, the normal thing. And I don't live in Jamaica. I don't have the slightest clue of how that works. But I've seen some of the stuff from what I follow. But it made me think about the question of what support looks like and what people and what governments should do, and also whether we sometimes have these unrealistic expectations of what types of support you should be getting. Because for one, it's not fully clear what that means. But here's how I would think about this. And I was thinking about this earlier. So one, support can be just like money, but support isn't really, it's not supposed to be just throwing money at athletes in any kind of way. I think when you think about the context, and let's kind of think about it in the context of Jamaica, I think what you really need if you are a government or if you want support is to think about the idea of you have to think mainly of pushing most of your money into grassroots development. Because ultimately, track and field, as bad as it might be, there is a professional route some way. We can complain about how much you're getting and whether that's fair, but that's how the marketplace works right now. So you have to spend a lot. I think the money and the support has to be in the early stages of the development, especially because the sport is considered important in that country, whether they like it or not. It is. It's the thing that the cultural capital comes from it as well, and I can talk about that. And so you want to think about the early exposure to track and field for young kids. Then you got to invest into the access of what kind of surfaces, the equipment. That's the kind of support, maybe through school systems, so on. I think that's good. Better coaches, access to better coaches can only be good. And I think they've been doing good jobs at that, they always credit their GC foster system for helping a lot. So that kind of partnerships there, you put there, you get more talent that might rise to the top at some point, right? And so you think about this kind of urban rural disparities that might exist, the grassroots structure needs changing. So I think that's important. That helps develop good everything. People participating in sports is all good. I don't have to go through that. There's tons of established research on why it's important for children to participate in sport. There's another level and layer that can benefit too, and I don't know where that space is, and is the kind of research and academic support that you can give. So there are institutions of higher learning there. So if you are a government, then maybe you think about what is your equivalent to NIH or NSF, those grant funding agencies that can work in the space of developing or keeping the sport atop, whether that's through food science, nutrition, prevention of injury, anything you want to think about conditioning, kind of similar to the kind of research funds you might see that's under attack now in the United States or in Europe or in Japan or in other places. You have great societies spend a lot of money on R&D and research through university structures. That's another way I think that you get a big bang for your buck there. I then think the big critical juncture for any athlete that decides that they want to pursue track and field or any sport as a way of life is that critical transition period between being a junior athlete and a professional athlete. Now, historically, a lot of the Jamaican athletes go to the use track and field as a mechanism to get an education, and some of them become superstars out of them. Others decide, like, I don't want to be a professional athlete, I'll get this degree and do something with it. There's still a great pipeline for that. But it's that transition, I suspect that's much harder if you decide to stay in that space and not go to college. And I always advocate the college route, but that's a different story. So the biggest vulnerability or the gap for those athletes is that transition when there's no structure in either a high school setup or they were in a college setup. Because sometimes even collegiate athletes have a hard time transitioning, but the good ones usually might get something that will allow them to transition because they'll figure out that they can do this, as opposed to like, okay, I just graduated with a degree in whatever, and the better route is to do something else. So it's bridging that gap between junior to get to senior success. And so that's where you need some financial support that would be important, maybe medical support, different kind of advice to transition you, to think about how to market yourself, how to be good for sponsors. Those type of things are always the tough things. And in some cases, clubs can help you, or if you're super talented, then you get a contract and they'll help to work around that. But if you're not, and maybe with some form of investment, it can work. In some places, you have a lottery system with the money can support. This is challenging in a country that's a middle-income country that doesn't have that amount of money. So when I see that stuff, I get it. Like, you're upset, or other people might be upset. And people might say, oh, you're doing a lot for the country, but it's a lot of other people. And if we think about even the state of the national stadium, I've been on record complaining about it, but then I also understand the realities of what it means to upgrade those facilities when you don't have the structure and support. So I don't know what exactly they want. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be supported, but it's not always easy, right? And so I think I would say transitional scholarships, or whatever you want to call them, to junior to senior, to see if you can make it, grants, different type of support. Maybe that's there for a high performance number of them. Not everybody will fit this bill. Others, you just have to kind of tough it out. This is how hard these things can become. And I think once you become a pro, you shouldn't expect anything. especially if you're a good pro. If you have a Nike, a Puma contract, or Adidas, whatever, it's interesting. Maybe you should be paying back into the system that gets you that support, and maybe there's a pension system that you could be part of as well. That can be a retirement fund. Yeah, I can see those type of things being in play, but this is not the UK. The United States barely puts money into track and field outside of what USA track and field does in that sense, right? You up to yourself to figure this out, and it's a business. Sport is a business. The athletes are, clubs are in a business, coaches are in a business, and it's not always easy. So maybe targeted grassroots improvements is where I would think about some kind of transition support, maybe smarter connections to private sector, but they have to see they're not in it for altruistic reasons. When private sector gives money, people often think they're doing a good thing, but they're doing it for other things. It's not no corporate social responsibility. Those things are we shouldn't believe that. So I think Assefa is highlighting some real issue. I don't want to downplay that. I think how Jamaica manages its athletic pipeline is important, but those solutions aren't simple. Especially when you're not a Gulf state or a place with bunch of money, right? You don't have a sovereign wealth fund that is like spitting money left, right, and center that you can give away. And so there are a lot of gaps there, and I suspect a lot of athletes fall through the crack. But at the same time, there's a lot of successes too. But that's not the way I want to think about it. But I would like to see more clarity on it in terms of exactly what do you want, right? Like when you get like that answer, then you could know if all of these questions are because I think I did well. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I think they did, right? Yeah, they are now. Is it? But they have to pay into it, right? All in the game. I didn't read the details of the USA thing, but yeah, I think when you're an athlete, you have to think about your future, and also someone has to tell you that your time is short, so you might be making a nice piece of change that looks different from others, but what you do with it. A lot of NFL guys go broke. A lot of NBA guys, many of them don't go as broke anymore because there are better structures in place for them to take care of their money. Money is not what you think it is. So you sign this big contract and you think it's cool, but you run out and you buy a brand new car, or you go, you know, buy the latest designer. Wear the designer because they're paying you to wear it. You don't need a Patek Philippe or Richard Mille. Make them put it on your hand. Be like Shelly or something like that. I know that's an outlier in terms of thinking about that, but don't do things that are unsustainable. And I know people are young, so it's hard we all make mistakes, right? So those are the structures you need to have in place to manage and think about, like, you have to pay for your rest of your life. Most sports professionals finish by early 30s or even before, depending on the sport. And if you don't have a pathway afterwards, it's going to be challenging. I know that's not necessarily the way. I don't know what the gripe is. That probably is part of it. But the transition thing, I think, is the biggest. You want to help them to get up, to become professional, and then maybe be back into a system that pays off. So I don't know. All right. It's been almost an hour and a half. I got to run. I want to talk about a lot more stuff, but as usual, when the stuff comes in, we get to it. It's been my pleasure hanging out with you guys. Hopefully you had a good time. I'll be back soon. Lots of track and field to discuss this week coming up, and yeah, I'll try to do another live before we end up on the weekend. But if not, I'll be there by the time we get to the other Diamond Leagues. And I'll leave on this note. I went to the Grand Slam track just for fun because I'm not going down to Miami for it. I don't have time. And I decided to buy the maximum amount of tickets, which was 10 in one category, and they were all available. So I hope to see a full stadium, but let's see. On that note, I'll see you guys next time. All right, take care, everyone.